Okay, the undercard of White Povetkin 2. Let's start from the bottom up. And I can only talk about the fights I've actually seen thus far. I can't talk about fights I haven't seen. The first fight I saw was Eric Pfeifer versus Nick Webb. That was actually shown on YouTube. That was part of their free view. Now, going into the fight, I'd seen a little bit of Eric Pfeifer. I know he was supposed to fight Daniel Dubois a while back, but for some reason the Dubois team decided against it. I know that Pfeifer had a pretty extensive amateur background. He fought some very good fighters in the amateurs. As a pro, he was obviously unbeaten, and he impressed Dylan White enough in training camp for Dylan to actually sign him. Dylan has a co-managerial contract with him. So I realistically, on paper, thought that Eric Pfeifer should win this fight and win it pretty decisively. Nick Webb has been knocked out by the likes of Dave Allen and Kamil Sokolovsky. Now, Kamil Sokolovsky is a journeyman. Is he a dangerous journeyman? Occasionally he is, yes. But nonetheless, if you're a guy the size of Nick Webb, who was being touted the way that he was, you really should be getting victories over guys like certainly Sokolovsky, but probably Dave Allen as well. But he got chinned by both of them. So I really felt like Pfeifer should win this fight. But Nick Webb was very fired up. You could see that from his ring entrance, when he was in the ring, prowling around. And when he came out in the first round, he really stamped his authority on the fight. He wasn't messing about at all. Nick Webb could always punch. We always knew this. He's a very big man. And he just would not be denied last night. He decided that he was going to go and take the fight to Pfeifer. And Pfeifer, as far as I'm aware, took this on pretty short notice. And that's no excuse or anything like that. But I do wonder whether he was as mentally up for it as Nick Webb was. But whatever the case may be, Nick Webb went out there, established his authority, was, swinging away with big shots right from the offset, intimidated Pfeifer, I think, buzzed him in the first round a couple times. And in the second round, it continued. He just forced his will upon him, managed to drop him, and managed to stop him. So congratulations, Nick Webb. The best I've ever seen him look. Truth be told, I've never seen Nick Webb look that good. Yeah, I know he was tattooing Dave Allen early on in their fight. But as I say, he eventually got chinned. Whereas this time, it wasn't him just boxing at long range the way he was against Allen and hitting him with combinations that way. No, he imposed himself upon Eric Pfeifer. And I've seen him impose himself upon journeymen and all these kind of people in the past. But I'm talking about an opponent who had some credentials, who had some ability. Not that Pfeifer was an extraordinary heavyweight, but he does have some pedigree there. This is not a guy who comes from the blue-collar circuit or white-collar circuit, excuse me. It's not a guy who comes from white-collar circuit. This is a guy who had an extensive amateur background and was unbeaten going in. So, good win for Nick Webb. I was a bit surprised by that fight. Now, the next fight on the undercard, which I watched, was Fabio Wardley versus Eric Molina. Now, Eric Molina has always had ability. He's always had some skill. He always could punch a little bit. The issue with Molina is that he doesn't appear to have much heart. He doesn't appear to have much stomach for battle. And therefore, when things get hot and heavy, Molina tends to check out. But if you go back and watch his fights against even Chris Arreola, he was stopped in the first round against Arreola, but he hurt Arreola in that first round. And that's back when Arreola was a lot better than he is now. Also, Deontay Wilder, when he fought for the WBC World Heavyweight title, he rocked Wilder on occasion. He showed decent skills. He was moving his head, making Wilder miss, making him pay. So Molina's always had that in him, a decent level of ability. And Fabio Wardley found that out in this fight, because Fabio Wardley was getting touched up by Eric Molina in there. Eric Molina is a cagey vet. Wardley was trying to walk him down behind his own jab. Molina was managing to land counter right hands over the top of Wardley's low left hand Also some body shots I seem to remember. As the fight progressed, it looked as though Wardley might find himself in some pretty deep water. And he was actually hurt by Molina in the 5th round. Molina pursued Wardley, who was backing up towards the ropes. They got into an exchange. Wardley got the better of it. Their legs did get tangled up, but it doesn't take much for Eric Molina to want to find a comfy spot on the canvas. Their legs did get tangled up after he took a couple shots, and he went down. He seemed happy. He seemed comfortable on that canvas, and it was ruled a knockout for Fabio Wardley. So, yeah, it was a good fight for Wardley, I think, a good learning fight, because going in there and just blasting somebody out in 1 round and not having to face any adversity isn't going to help him improve from a technical perspective and even from a boxing IQ perspective. So he'll be able to go back and look at that fight and say, okay, what did I do wrong? And it's not even just looking back at the fight on video, but even when you're in there, you remember certain things. You remember when an opponent does certain things, when he pulls certain moves, when he tries to lure you into certain traps. The next time you're in the ring and somebody tries to do something similar, you get a flashback. You think, okay, I've seen this before. I've seen somebody try to put me in this position before. I know what to do this time. And I know I know what not to do as well. So, yeah, it was a good learning fight for Fabio Wardley. He did his thing. Some people are talking about his chin, saying it might be suspect. I'd be more concerned about Wardley's defense and about his boxing IQ. Because, as I say, Molina always could punch. He rocked Deontay Wilder. He knocked out Thomas Adamek badly a few years ago. That was a devastating knockout. So, Molina can punch. These are big guys. He came in at 251 pounds. So, I wouldn't necessarily see that as a massive problem for Wardley as yet. We'll see how he reacts in future when he gets tagged on the chin again. So next fight I watched on the undercard was Chris Kongo versus Mckinsen. I didn't see the whole fight. I only saw bits and pieces. But from what I saw, Mckinsen was the ring general. He was dictating the pace. Chris Kongo, to me, looked uncomfortable. He was moving around the ring, wasn't really landing anything particularly clean from the rounds I saw. So I can't really score it. I can't really tell you whether the decision was a fair one. I haven't heard anybody complain about it, but I'm just saying because I haven't seen the whole fight, I can't really give you my take on the scoring. But the end result was a unanimous decision win for Mckinsen, who was very happy and very hyper in the post-fight interview. It was quite funny, actually. He was very happy because he's come from obscurity compared to Chris Kongo. And if we look at his record for a second, only 2 KOs in 20 fights. And surely Chris Kongo must have looked at that and thought, there's no way that I can lose to a guy who's only had 2 KOs in 20 fights. He's not going to be able to have, he's not going to have the power to be able to deter me from doing what I want to do. But evidently he did. Knockout ratios can be deceptive. It's rare, let's be real, it's rare for a guy with only 2 knockouts in 20 fights to be able to have the ability to keep you honest. That's rare. Normally you can just walk down guys like that with impunity without too much concern about what's coming back. But in this case, Michael Mckinsen looks better than advertised. So congratulations to him on beating Chris Kongo and taking Chris Kongo's unbeaten record. Then we moved up to the chief support, which was Ted Cheeseman versus James Metcalfe. Now, I never realized that James Metcalfe was the son of Shea Neary, because I watched Shea Neary back in the days, and he was a very tough man. Metcalfe doesn't look like his dad Shea Neary that much in the face, but his build is very similar. He's got this very square shoulders and this powerful build, which was similar to his dad. Now, Cheeseman, for me, showed that he was the more skilled and the better boxer of the two throughout the contest. But there was a round in the middle of the fight where Cheeseman kind of emptied the gas tank because he had Metcalfe hurt, but he didn't manage to finish him. And basically, he punched himself out in that round. That's how it appeared to me. And he had to take a few rounds off after that, where James Metcalfe was able to come back into it. And in fact, he managed to rock Ted Cheeseman on occasion. So it was a good fight through, I want to say, 7, 8, 9, those kind of rounds. It started to get a little bit repetitive at times because it was a little bit one-paced. When Ted Cheeseman finally got his second wind, that's when the fight really started to turn, and it started to look as though Ted Cheeseman was just going to go on to a points victory, because it was pretty nip and tuck through the first, I want to say, maybe 8, 9 rounds, or maybe 7, 8 rounds. But then Cheeseman started to come back into it. He found his second wind. And then in the 11th round, there was a spectacular knockout where Cheeseman again appeared to be buzzed. Metcalfe went for him. They got into an exchange. Cheeseman got the better of the exchange, and Metcalfe was knocked out with a brutal left hand. And I hope Metcalfe is okay. That's my initial reaction to that knockout was, I hope Metcalfe is okay, because those kind of fights where it's an attritional battle and it's a long, grueling fight and it ends in a devastating knockout, those are the kind of fights where people can get hurt, like badly hurt. So I was a bit concerned, and I was happy to see that after they gave him, I think they gave him oxygen and they stood him up, he seemed to be in a decent way, as decent as you can be after getting knocked out like that after a tough fight. But, there was no serious injuries there or anything like that, which was good to see. So, yeah, Ted Cheeseman, congratulations to him. This was for the British light middleweight or super welterweight title. And Cheeseman is very rarely in a bad fight. I think he's maybe had 1 or 2 fights that were not particularly entertaining, but this fight was very entertaining. A back and forth slugfest until finally Cheeseman concluded matters in the 11th round with a highlight reel knockout. And also as well, another thing I forgot to mention is Cheeseman was cut in the fight. In the mid rounds, he got cut over his eye, and he also had a bloody nose. And I'm wondering whether that disturbed Cheeseman a little bit, knocked him off his game a little bit, because again, he did take his foot off the pedal after, rocking Metcalfe in the middle. I think it might have been one of the earlier rounds in the fight, but he did seem to take his foot off the pedal. So it could be that he punched himself out, but it could also be that maybe the cut was affecting him a little bit as well. But yeah, anyway, let me know what you guys felt about the undercard here, the performances of all the fighters mentioned, where they go from here, especially somebody like Chris Kongo. Where does he go from here after suffering that loss? Eric Pfeifer, he's only just signed with Dylan White and he's lost already. Ted Cheeseman. Cheeseman is a very tough man. I'm not sure how far he can go. I don't know whether he'll need to change his training setup or what he'll need to do, because has he reached his ceiling already? That's the question I want to ask you guys. At this stage, if Ted Cheeseman's to go on and challenge for world honors, he's going to need to be absolutely immaculate in terms of his technique, in terms of his strategy and so on, because he's just not as talented as the top guys at 154 pounds. And if you're not as talented as they are, then you're going to need to be immaculate technically, So let's see what he can do. He's certainly got the toughness. He's got the determination. He's got the will to win, but just needs the skills, the ability, he's got a decent boxing brain, but he needs to take that to the next level. Let's see whether he can do it. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'm out. Come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide range of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page, and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&A sessions, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalogue of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got a Discord server where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. There's no contract, no commitment, and you can cancel at any time. So come and join our community of free and critical thinkers by signing up with me here on Patreon today.